Hi there, and welcome to today's episode of A Different Way of Seeing, a show where we talk all things disability. I'm your host, Lois and today I'm taking a step back from the host's chair and once again sitting in the role of being the person being interviewed. And we are continuing the conversation with Jeremy Opperman about my journey with chronic kidney disease, with dialysis, and with my upcoming kidney transplant. So, Jeremy, do you want to give us a recap of where we were when we last spoke?
Yes, Lois, hi. Good. It's good to be back, and it's been rather exciting. There's been there's been lots of things: relief, anxiety, frustration. I suspect from your point of view. So we had our last conversation was recorded on the 10th of March this year, and just a quick recap. You had jumped through all the hoops in terms of one, finding a donor, two, getting the donor and you to get all the tests you needed. And then the last hoop that needed to be jumped through, not by yourself, but we were discussing, was that the Department of Health would need to sign off, um, meaning that because your donor was a non-blood relative, in other words, a stranger, they do need to sign off. And you had submitted everything. I believe, Lois, you submitted that application for them to sign off the whole thing on about the 2nd or 3rd of March. Am I right?
That's correct. The 3rd of
That's
March
right.
was Monday.
That's
Yeah.
right. So when we spoke, it was a week after that, and your last words to me on this exact subject was, it should take about 2 or 3 weeks. And then thereafter, about 6 weeks later, we should expect an operation. Bearing in mind that was 10th of March. And you know, I I've never felt such a strong sense of vicarious anxiety on your behalf as week by week we would touch sides and they hadn't yet signed off. How did that feel for you? 2, 3, 4 weeks later.
It was intensely frustrating. And I think more seriously, it started becoming a very difficult mental space to be in. Um, I expected it would take about 3 weeks. So I was
Mm,
expecting that I would hear by late March and then be expecting to have the surgery early June. And as the weeks went by, 3 weeks came and went, 4, 5, 6, 2 months came and went.
mm,
And I think about 8 or 9 weeks was when you and I started to chat. But I I went from being, oh well, it'll happen when it happens,
mm,
to
mm,
when is it going to happen,
mm,
to will it happen? And I think
mm.
that was possibly for me one of the hardest times that I've experienced through this whole 17 months journey of living with
Mm,
chronic
mm.
kidney disease and dialysis, because this was where mentally I began to struggle.
Yes.
And it just became the, it became more of a struggle to get up the energy to go to dialysis
Mm,
and
mm,
and just work through that, because I had nothing that I was able to be looking forward to, nothing that was drawing me forwards into the future.
mm.
I was in a holding pattern, and it became began to have serious implications for
So
my
I'd
mental
like
health.
to chip in here, and I just want to give the listeners a little bit of real clarity about what the implication is of this. So what we're talking about is the Department of Health was supposed to sign this thing off. And when it became clear that it wasn't going to be 3 weeks, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think what listeners must appreciate is the potential knock-on effect, not to mention only the anxiety you felt and vicariously your friends
Mm.
and connections like me watching this space, sitting on our hands. I'm not. I mean, I commend your patience. I find I would never have been quite. I've never been good with fatalism, I have to say. I would have been champing at the bit long before you did. But I think we mustn't underestimate the dangerous potential of the knock-on effect here, because the longer this delayed, the more chances there would be of something getting in the way. Your donor might have suddenly had a problem. You might have suddenly had a problem. Um, your surgical team might have had an issue, and so the I was incensed. And I'm saying that, and I'm saying me because I was able to contribute a little bit in this narrative. I was incensed at the lackadaisyness of this signature not being forthcoming when you were expecting it. So we spoke weekly. I'd phone you and say, and it was week 6, 7, 8 weeks. Tell us a little bit about what happened after that.
Well, I just want to say, you know, logically, I don't know what was happening on the other side. For all I know, there were people scrutinizing everything. For all I know, I have no idea what was happening on the other side. And there may be things that I'm not aware of that meant that that 10-week delay was justified. But I will say that sitting not knowing became the problem. And,
Mm, mm.
if there was something going on, surely it's a simple thing to drop an email to the transplant team and say, this is where we're at. We are expecting it will take another 3, 4, 5, whatever, however
Mm, mm,
long.
mm, mm.
But not receiving any feedback, not knowing that was the problem, that holding pattern of just
Yes,
sitting and waiting
absolutely.
without any sign of what might be happening.
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
happened then was a very good friend of mine and a colleague, i.e. yourself, suggested that we reach out and approach things from a different in a different way.
So I
And
suppose I better step in here and
I
explain, hey?
suppose, yeah, because this is your part of the story
Yeah.
that I
So,
don't really know the background.
oh, right. Well, so and I don't do fatalism well. And, people often say, oh, it will happen. And I actually believe in making one's own luck. And so, um, I suddenly had a brainwave. I was trying to think of who else did I know that might have influence with the department. And I tried one angle and he didn't. And then I don't know why I didn't think of this man before. And I'm derelict there because had I, this thing might have unraveled quicker. Anyway, so I suddenly remembered a man called Dr. Karl le Roux, and that's interestingly, it's Karl with a K. And I came across Karl because I know his father-in-law, um, who, by the way, has a very strong linkage with the blind world, his father-in-law. But I came across Karl because he was a brand new DAMP in June 2024. And I'd known about him for many years because I said I knew his father-in-law, or I know his father-in-law. And Carl's background is quite interesting. He is a doctor. He's a local boy, went to a local school here in Cape Town. And he and his new wife went up to the Eastern Cape and they and two friends, also two doctors. And his wife's also a doctor. So these four doctors went up to the Eastern Cape, not far from Coffee Bay, and they started a clinic. They literally started a community clinic from nothing. And 16 years later, they all had kids. They brought the kids up there. They schooled the kids there. They started a school. They created the most incredibly vibrant and much loved community in this area outside of Coffee Bay or near Coffee Bay. Um, for 16 years. The downside of the story is that the Department of Health and its inimitable incompetence, sadly, um, basically messed it up by importing a totally incompetent person. They created a CEO position from a nurse's position, and it took less than a year for this thing to collapse. And so these doctors came back. And I found that to be such a tragic story when he told it to us. And I think that's what a year later he had decided to do something in a different way, and he had joined or he had applied to become a DAMP. And so he was in the brand new uh, tranche of MPs when the government of national unity began in that political season, so the second half of 2024. And so the man has a great community credential. Anyway, so he sprung to mind. I thought, wow, doctor and MP. And I went out on a complete limb. He's not a friend of mine. I've only spoken to him precisely once. Anyway, I called him and I said, what can you do? And I was amazed at the alacrity with which he stepped up. And the first thing he said was, let me see, let me look into it. And he said, this thing should not take more than 2 weeks. I told him it was already 9 weeks. And he said, let me find out. And he sat in it for a week. I pinged him and he said, no, no, I haven't forgotten. I've got an appointment tomorrow. Can I have the recipient's name and ID number? So I called you and you said, no problem. I gave it to him. And the next Monday, he said, can I have the donor's name and ID number? I said, absolutely not. I can't give that to you. And I said, I think it's time that you can speak to Lois yourself. So I'll hand it back to you now, Lois. So you actually physically had a conversation with him?
I did. And in fact, the irony of the situation is I was on the phone to the transplant coordinator on my side when I received a call from you saying, contact Karl. So when I had finished up on the call with my transplant coordinator, I then contacted Karl, gave him the information he requested, and this is where my life went from being a holding pattern to being the exact opposite. And we're talking now the
Of
end of the
13,
first week
12 or
in
so,
May.
and
Yeah.
11, 12, 13 were the times we were talking to him, I
Yeah,
think.
sort of the second week in May. And within 2 days of me speaking to Karl, I received an email back from the Department of Health saying that they requested my donor to redo two of the tests that she had done, the blood tests, just to get updated information. And then we did that the following day, which was the 15th of May. The results were submitted to the Department of Health on the Monday, which was the 18th. And on the 19th, I received a phone call from my transplant coordinator saying that the approval had been received and looking at moving on to scheduling a date, which was an
Amazing, huh?
interesting story all on its own. But let me not jump the gun. So,
Okay. Well, I
let,
don't know. I think it's almost time for jumping the gun. Just to say, though, What a relief. And the vindication of the fact that somebody can step in and make a difference, I think, cannot be underestimated. And one last punt to him was that it shows that a person in some authority, like a member of parliament, can in fact make a difference if they choose to. If they choose to, and this proves a point, I think. So I'm sure you are, but I'm personally grateful to him because
Oh,
I couldn't
yes.
stand the strain much longer. I don't know how you did it.
I think we hear so much about, and I'm not just talking here in South Africa, I'm talking globally, that when we have politicians who are doing something wrong or are not being active, we hear all about it. But I do believe that there is far more good that is being done than we hear. And this gives you and I an opportunity to just spotlight one situation. Yes, that is of intensely personal relevance to me,
Mm,
but it's to be able to spotlight one situation where a member of parliament has gone out of their way to look at the interests of one human being,
mm,
one constituent, one person in the country, and have a huge impact on their life.
mm, mm.
And I do believe that stories like that should be shared more often.
Well, precisely why we're doing this podcast, I think.
Yeah.
So,
So, yes, in passing, I happened to
mm,
mention in that conversation. Now, first of all, when the phone call came in, I had to shift my mental direction because I was in process of doing something else. I was waiting to speak to or to waiting to meet up with a friend of mine who was visiting from the USA, and the phone call came in, and Sister Margaret said to me, "Well, just to give you the good news." And my brain kind of screeched to a halt and went, "Oh," um, and then asked the fateful question: "Do we have any idea when it might happen?" And I was told that there were two dates available. Now, bearing in mind, this is the 19th of May.
mm,
And I was told two possible dates that were available were the 9th of June, where they had received a cancellation. Someone had, for some reason, not been able to take up that date. And the next available date was the 11th of August. And I, of course, went, well, if I can organize it and if my medical team is happy, is there any chance we can go for the 9th of June? And, well, we're recording this now on what date is it? Actually,
it's the
it's
second.
the
It's the
2nd of
second.
June. It's the
Yeah.
2nd of June, and I'm having my transplant a week
Um,
today.
a week today.
A week today.
Not to be melodramatic, but this time next week you'll be under the knife, so to speak.
Not quite.
Oh,
At this
okay.
time next week, because we're recording this about 10 o'clock in the morning, and at this stage, my donor will probably be in theatre next week, and my surgical operation will probably take place around 2 p.m.
No. Okay.
So, and it honestly has been two of the longest and yet shortest weeks that I think I've ever experienced. The amount that has happened in the last 2 weeks, getting ready to go into hospital next week, has been it's been incredible what we've managed to get done. in
Let's hear
terms of,
that. I'm
yeah.
I'm curious now that you have an operation date. I mean, the rubber has now seriously hit the road. So, what exactly did you have to get? What do you have to do in the last couple of weeks?
Well, previously coming up to that point, I kind of thought, well, I need to prepare to slow things down business wise. I need to keep family informed and friends informed. The number of people who have wanted to remain part of this whole experience has been amazing, and I think we'll probably come on to that a bit, just in a bit. But all the things that I've needed to do to put in place, I've kind of had an idea of what they were, but I thought I would have 6 weeks to
Mm, mm, mm.
to roll those out. And in fact, of course, this is fairly typical of my life, and I'm pretty certain that most other people, or many other people, will be able to say that in fact it's pretty similar to their lives, that things go a bit backwards, that it takes me longer to get to this point and then shorter to get to the surgery. You know, where I was expecting it to be the other way around, shorter to get to the surgery date or to get to the approval, and then longer to get to the surgery date. But
Yes,
I
yes.
did things, turn those back to front. So I've had to put all of those different aspects. I've not only had to suddenly go, what is it that has to get happen? What do I have to get done? And I've been very busy over the last 2 weeks creating several. Well, I've managed to do two podcasts. One came out today, in fact, the 2nd of June, and one will come out the 16th. And then I have a final one, which is just a short note explaining why I'll be taking a few weeks off, or possibly a
Mm,
month or so off from my podcast, and then also from my blog. So I've had to pre create and schedule all of that content. We've also set up two groups on WhatsApp for family members and friends who want to receive updates on the surgery, just to find out what's happening. So that is a broadcast group that is being run by my husband currently, and I will give updates as and when I have the capacity to do so. And then I've also set up a second WhatsApp group, which is more of a chat group, because the the first group will be us sending out status reports. There will not be the opportunity for people to ask questions or to reach out and offer support and encouragement. And I felt that that
mm,
was
mm,
also an important part, because it is a two-way conversation. People will
mm,
have questions. They will want to know how they can ask those questions.
mm,
But rather than having multiple messages on my WhatsApp checking in to see how I'm doing, or to say, hey, we hope you're doing okay, I thought, let me try and put those onto one place so that I can also answer multiple people's questions, because many people have the same or similar questions,
mm, mm.
one in one go. So that is
Good.
the second group that's been set up as a chat group. And then I'm at the stage today where I'm doing the more detailed planning of what to take with me to hospital, which obviously we've been thinking about, and doing shopping and that sort of thing. So all of that is going into it. And then the thing that is hardest for me, as you know, Jeremy, and as many of my close friends know, we have my guide dog is here with me, and we also have three rescue dogs who are part of our
Mm,
family. And two of the dogs do not get on, and that is my guide dog and one of our little rescues. And we will be having someone. Okay, to take one step back. The week that I am going into surgery for 4 days, my husband will come and stay at, he'll be staying closer to the hospital so that he will be
oh.
there to check in on me and on my donor, because her partner is not going to be, my donor lives further away.
in
She doesn't live in the same province as me. She lives
yes.
2 hours by air travel away. So her partner and her son did not come down here. So Craig is going to be able to check in on us, and he wanted to stay closer because it's an hour's journey from my home to the hospital. So he's staying close by where we are. So he'll be checking in on us more regularly for at least the first week. And then, which means that we need a house sitter to look after the animals.
Mm.
And unfortunately, because the two boy dogs don't get on, I've been very grateful to the South African Guide Dogs Association, who have found a foster family for the guide dog.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
we've had to arrange all of that as well. So everything is finally falling into place. That we're the all
All
the
takes energy. All takes energy and a
it
great
does.
deal of effort to put
And
that
I'm
into gear.
Yeah, and I'm still receiving dialysis. So my times that I'm able to put things in place is also limited. But yes, it's been a busy 2 weeks.
So, operation, 4 days, but how long really will you be recovering for?
Well, my I met with my surgeon yesterday and we had that discussion. So I will probably be in hospital for a total of 10 days or so.
Wow.
It may be a little bit longer. There's the recovery from the physical side, the physical transplant, which will take some time. And that's a whole process that we will work through. And obviously, each person's experience is individual. So it might take a little bit shorter, a little bit longer. We don't know. But then there's the side of the new medication, the new medical regime that I'll need to go on, working out what is going to work best for me. And that is
Yes.
often what takes a little bit longer. And added into the mix of that is, of course, the complication that it's taking my existing conditions into consideration, like my diabetes, my high blood pressure, cholesterol, and all of that needs to be managed and balanced.
Mm, mm.
And that's why for me it can take 10 days, if not longer. So we're hoping that I will be in hospital between 8 and 10 days, but it might be a little bit longer.
Wow.
And that remains to be seen. And then from my donor's perspective, because her surgery is keyhole surgery, which is, I think, is absolutely incredible. She will probably be
Wow.
in hospital 3, maybe 4 days. And then she has to have a a follow-up examination by the surgeon that who's doing the removal, the first part of the operation, just to ensure that she is then healthy enough to return back home.
Hmm.
Um, so there are many, many moving parts to
Loads of moving parts, I was
yeah.
going to say, and balls in the air. Extraordinary. So one doesn't think like that, when you have to do this sort of stuff on your own. No one's doing it for you. You're not a child. No one's doing this stuff for you. You're having to keep these balls in the air. So
Well,
we mustn't underestimate that.
once again, I need to come back, and I think I've said this literally each time we've spoken. My gratitude to my amazing support system, because I couldn't
Sure.
have done this without the support system that I have. From my husband who's dealing with all the paperwork side of things and the medical aid side of things and
Mm.
all, that side of things, which is harder due to my blindness. Craig has been superb about taking all of that off my shoulders.
Mm. Mm.
And the medical teams, that obviously that's where the transplant coordinator comes into to play. That she and her team have done an exceptional job of coordinating that all of this happens when it's meant to happen, letting me know what tests I need to have when, and making those appointments for me. And the various doctors who have been involved along the way, and when I need to see them, and who I need to see when, and where, and how. And, you know, they really have also taken a huge amount off my shoulders as the individuals, the the recipient of the kidney. So there's so many people. And then, of course, my incredible team on this side, my friends, who every time I reach out and say, is anyone able to help with this? There are
Mm.
so many people who have just held up their hands and say, I will help. I mean, back in February last year, February 2025, as I started looking at going to the dialysis center 3 times a week,
Mm.
putting a post out on Facebook saying, is anyone able to help with lifts? And we didn't know how
Mm.
long people would be signing up for. But I've had a group of about 15 people who have helped me for 17 months
Amazing.
to get to and from. And yes, I have used Uber. I've probably used Uber probably 15, 20 times, but only
Okay.
15 or 20 times in 17 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the rest of the time, I've had friends, family members who have been there. And of course, then when in May last year, I started a group on Facebook looking for a potential donor, 11 people said they would be willing to be tested.
I know. Extraordinary, huh?
And,
Oh,
this is where I've learned so much through this process. But I think the biggest thing that I'll be walking away with is an immense sense of the goodness of the people around me, the generosity and the gratitude that I have to everybody who's been part of this journey with me.
well, it is a journey and it's not over, but
True.
we're entering into a really interesting moment, an exciting moment, hopeful moment. Of course, remind the listeners that once the operation is done, you have your new kidney in you. Um, all going well, unless, of course, the kidney turns out to be a little bit lazy initially, and you do need a spot of dialysis, you shouldn't have to have dialysis again. Isn't that a wonderful thought for yourself?
It's true. And in fact, sitting here today, the I don't want to say the probability, but I will say that there is at least a good possibility that I will only have 3 more dialysis sessions.
Ah, hey, what a
Yeah,
pleasure. What a pleasure. 2 more dialysis. And then
3.
once again, you can drink far more than 1 liter of fluids a day.
Oh, well, this was part of the conversation we had with the surgeon. The foods that I've been avoiding because of their high potassium levels,
Yep.
I can eat those again. Instead of having to limit myself to 1 liter of fluid,
Mm,
which includes tea, coffee, water, juice,
mm,
yogurt, um, what else? Soups, which, seeing as we're in winter here in Cape Town, is a big part of my normal diet.
mm.
Anything like ice cream, anything like that is fluid that comes out of that 1 liter.
Yep.
Now I'm
Yep.
going to be facing the opposite situation where I believe that I don't have this yet on confirmed, but most of the people that I know who have been recipients of kidneys now have to um, consume sort of a lot more fluid to keep the new kidney hydrated to avoid rejection. So it may be, from what I've seen, it looks like I'll be going from a maximum of 1 liter to a minimum of 3 liters
Well, wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm still holding
within
out for
this.
my half a liter of gin and tonic from you at some point. So,
I'm not putting
or wine. I'll
I'm
take
not.
either.
You can certainly have those if you wish. I will have I may have a little bit of gin and tonic to celebrate, or some champagne or
Yes,
something, but I'm certainly not going to run any risks of putting that
sure.
new kidney uh, um, under duress by suddenly consuming huge amounts of alcohol. So I don't want to be
Yes,
stupid
no, I think
about
that
these
might be
things
a bit
either.
risky.
But I will
Indeed.
learn more about that next week. All going well.
Yes, won't you just? And well, I think on that note, I think it's probably a good time to wrap here.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, and speaking purely from myself, I want to give you wish you the absolutely everything of the best for your operation. I'm sure listeners will certainly say that when they hear this. And you're going to be posting this quite quickly, I think, certainly on video, on the
Yes.
YouTube, aren't
Yeah.
you?
The
Good.
YouTube video should go out hopefully by the end of today. And
Excellent. Excellent.
the podcast will take a little bit longer. As I say, I'm taking a bit of a break because I don't know what my recovery is going to be like.
Sure.
I
Sure.
know typically people expect after a kidney transplant to go back to work after 6 weeks. So it may not be as long as I anticipated, but
Yes,
just to be
indeed.
sure, I don't
Indeed.
want to commit to anything and then not to be able to deliver. So
Yes, certainly. But
leaving all that
theoretically,
so it goes.
one thing we can commit to is that if you're able, and when you're able, we'll be recording another post-operative or post-operation podcast, won't we?
We will, because we
Right.
have to close the circle.
And look, absolutely, we've got to close the circle. So we're looking forward to that, indeed. So from my side, all the very best for the operation. It's been a real journey, this one,
Yeah.
with everything thrown in. And I'm so pleased it worked out well in the end. So the very, very best of luck, Lois.
Well, thanks so much, Jeremy, and thank you for walking, checking in and being a good friend and, you know, and nudging me
Absolutely.
to
Well,
reach out to Karl le Roux as well. So thank you for that. It was a pivotal point in
yes.
this.
Yeah, I'll keep him in the loop as to how you're managing. In fact, he's going to be speaking at our Rotary Club in September, 14th of
Okay.
September. He'll be speaking about um, 2 years on from the Government of National Unity. So it'll be quite an interesting conversation. So I'll invite you to that when we have it. You should be
It would be,
perfectly fixed up by then.
I should be, if I'm not jetting off overseas already.
Oh,
You never
wow.
know.
Listen to you. Okay.
But it would be lovely
You've
to
got to
meet
catch
you.
up. You're behind on your overseas trips, yeah.
We are, definitely.
You are, but yes.
Anyway,
Where
Jeremy.
next? Where next? Where are you going?
Ah,
Where do you want to go?
oh, that is an entirely different conversation. Maybe we should leave that for the next
All right, we'll
conversation.
do that for the next one. Next one. Okay.
Jeremy, thank you so much. And thanks as always for helping me to speak my way through this journey because it's your questions that have kept us guiding us through the process. So thank you for that.
Well, my pleasure. My pleasure. All
And
right.
as always, if people
Yep.
want to reach out to find out more about Jeremy, you can find him on LinkedIn or you can find him on what is your website?
Yep.
Disabilitydesk.co.za.
www.disabilitydesk.co.za.
And if you would like to, in my absence of the YouTube channel and of the podcast, if you'd like to find out any more of my work, you can do so through my website, loisstrachen.com. And yeah, we will add those notes into the episode descriptions. So thank you. We will speak to you next time.